Well, halfway through the year, our real estate has been on a rocket ship. Tune in to find out how the first half of the year finished up. Welcome back to another Calgary Real Estate Market update with us here at Redline Real Estate Group on Redline TV. My name is Darren Langille and I am one of the founders here at Redline, and I am your host for these monthly market update series. In this video, I will be discussing the key items that you need to know in regards to all the data that just got released from June 2021. Let's go. Now, as I release this video update, Calgary and area is just coming off of one of its most intense heat waves we've ever had in our history as a city. So I guess it's only fitting that we're talking about breaking another set of real estate records here this month with me today. So I'm here to report that June 2021 did break the all-time sales record for June here in 2021. Yes, this broken record keeps spinning about the pace and volume of our sales here in the Calgary market. We had 2,915 sales in the month of June, which is eclipsing the next best from 2006 by nearly 200 homes, or by a 7% increase in sales. So we didn't just break it, we smashed it. And this as well is only a slowdown of 74 home sales from our prior month of May, which, when we remember, was an incredible month as well. Here, as I pull up this graph, this is from the Calgary Real Estate Board, and it's showing the last 15 years of sales in June. You can see where I put the red line across the screen. You can see how high this month was for us in 2021 in relation to all the other years. Quite incredible. Now in this next graph, you'll see two separate lines. The red line is the one representing 2021 sales, and then the blue one below is 2020s. You'll see all year long we've been significantly higher in regards to our sales per week over last year. But now as we get to the end of June, you're noticing that the blue line is creeping up to ours. And that's because last year, this is when the spring cycle started as we were coming out of the depths of the pandemic. Then again, on this third graph representing the sales, I just wanted to represent it in another way. You'll see again, this is a percentage of increase. Sales of 2021 over 2020. And again, we were much higher early. And then as we've been tapering here to the end of June, our sales numbers are getting very close to where we were last year. Now, all things considered, we have just put a cap on our best sales quarter of our history. Congrats, Calgary. You had an incredible run. But let me pull up another graph here, and this one is a sales per day figure that's extrapolated over a weekly number. As you can see, this is going back all the way from January all the way till our recent end of the month here in June. You'll notice that we went up and we created our peak sales numbers, and now we're naturally coming down after we've just completed our best quarter ever. When I look closer at the data, ever since April 3rd, all the way up till the end of June, we've been seeing 90 sales per day or higher for that entire quarter. And it's now we're coming down on the back half of that, where we're probably going to start creeping into the high 80s as we trickle into the summer selling months. And from here, we will see that sales per day number cascade just slightly downward all the way through the balance of 2021. Nothing to fret. This is just the natural seasonality that we'd expect at this time of the year. All right, let's now talk about our inventory story. Well, to start, at the beginning of June, we had 6,783 homes on the market. This at that point had us with 13% more inventory than we did at the same period of 2020. Now, as you see by this graph, we have increased our inventory slightly, and we finished June off with 6,921 homes on the market. This throughout the month of June only increased our net inventory by about 150 homes on the market. And now as we finish the month, we're only sitting with 7% more inventory than we did at this point last year. This again is because 2021 is following a typical seasonal real estate cycle, where when we're comparing it to 2020, this wasn't the case. It was only at this point where we started to wake up and have our late spring market. Here again, I've pulled up a Calgary Real Estate Board graphic speaking to the last 15 years of total active inventory for June. You'll see again, I drew in a red line, and there you'll notice that where we sit in relation to the other years. At this point, there's basically 4 years over the last 15 that has had more inventory than we do today. So we are on the higher side of overall inventory. This again echoes this continued message that I've been relaying to you, that we're not in an overheated, hot market like some of the headlines around North America. Those markets are in a low inventory situation with no changes in sight. Ours has been much healthier, and this has saved us from overinflating our pricing. Now, as I pull up this graph, this is the listings per day throughout June. Well, what do you notice? Well, yes, seasonally, now we're getting to the point where we're not seeing massive increase in new listings. As you'll see, the curve brings us downward, and that listings per day number is less now than it was at the beginning of June, and as expected by our seasonal months. What it looks like from the data is that we have now hit our active inventory peak. Not 100%, but it's very likely that we're near the top we will be for the year. Now, the only exception there is if the sales per day number starts to shrink quickly, that will result in a higher net amount of active inventory sitting on the market. But that buyer demand continues, so I do expect to see us hit near peak and start to gradually decline our overall inventory if things continue all the way through to December. This graph here just shows things that I've plotted myself going back to January about the listings per day. And you can see the gradual ramp up in February, March, April, May. We kind of peaked here in June, and now we're starting to taper along downward. Okay, let's transition now over to the pricing picture. All right, first of all, the benchmark sales price for Calgary at the end of June was $458,300. This is a year-over-year increase of 11.4%. It's a great number for us. And this is also a month-over-month increase of about 1%. Now, as I mentioned last month, we've continued to roll back the clock on our average benchmark sales price all the way back to our peak numbers of 2014. We continue to inch our way to that number, which means the recovery would be fully executed. We're just a few thousand away at this point. But here's the key. We've done it in Calgary, in Alberta, in a very sustainable and healthy way. The actual fundamentals of how we got here are in check. There is no sign of our bubbles bursting. It's because our supply and our demand equation have been rolling along properly, not overinflated, again, like many of our other markets around North America. I personally am very confident in these numbers staying where they are because of the healthy way in which we got there. I look at these numbers every day and I feel very confident about it and how we got ourselves here. So Calgary, be confident. I am. Now here, as always, I wanted to pull up the graph that shows how all our pricing has adjusted across all the districts throughout the city. Again, as you'll see, all green arrows, all positive numbers, but it is different based on the different sections of our city. And here again, I'll have our property type breakdowns. The detached market, it increased year over year, 13%. Row houses increased by 9%. Semi-detached properties increased by 11%, and our apartments even increased year over year by 5%. Now, on top of pure pricing, the sales to list price ratio, so the final sale price on average in relation to the asking price when first gone to market, was 98.4%. That's very healthy, but it does still show that people are getting a little bit off of the initial asking prices. Okay, at this point, we've talked about the sales summary, the inventory story, and then finally our pricing picture. But hold on one sec, because I want to go over one more thing that speaks to the pace of our current market. First of all, sales to new listings ratio. Here, the higher the number, the healthier the market, the higher the pace. Now, as you see by the graph, we started June in a very healthy situation. 76% sales to new list ratio. Then, as you look at the graph, it slightly inches up throughout the month, up to where we sit today at an 80% sales to list ratio. And here, this is where you might be starting to wonder, Darren, you said sales are starting to decline week over week, didn't you? So shouldn't the answer in this situation be that the pace is slower? Well, yes, sales, they are starting to decline, but listings are also declining as well. The situation we find ourselves in right now is the continued sales numbers are maintaining themselves where the listings per day numbers are dropping off sooner. And that is creating a tightening effect on our current market. And that's what represents us here at the end of June into when I record this at the beginning of July. Now, when this is happening, this will keep our housing prices in check with no real fear that they're going to decline as the seasonal trend starts to affect us and the sales per day numbers continue to slightly inch downward as we push to Christmas. And again, the pace, that sales to new listings ratio, that has trended upwards in all 4 property types as well. All right, and the second thing about pace is the months of supply. In this case, it's the lower the number, the faster the market. Now again, as you see by this graph, you'll see that at the beginning of June, we were down around 2.3 months of supply, and now we finished the month with a little bit more at 2.5. Now the months of supply metric takes into account the entire active inventory on the market. And remember, I just told you we've hit near peak numbers on our active inventory. As sales start to trend down, we're down in that 89, 90 sales per day number. And when we use that in our calculation to create months of supply, when we have peak inventory, it is natural as the seasonal changes adjust that the months of supply will creep up, and up as we cascade again through to the slower kind of December, January months to come. So it's natural. This is what we'd expect to see. One other thing I get asked often is days on market. This has all resulted in our current days on market being 34 days. This is actually an increase of 2 days since last month, and then a little bit more from our peak selling month of April. But again, it's still a 38% reduction from 2020's numbers, keeping things moving along, as I'm sure you're feeling it if you're in the buying or selling side of our market. Okay, so as a final summary for you, let me pull up this final graph. And this is the showing time graph. This speaks to the active buyer demand of people out there showing houses today. What we know is buyer showings will precede sales slowing down. So at this point, you see in the graph that we've tapered down to near February numbers when it comes to our active showings going on right now, which will trend us towards this slightly slower sales month that will happen here in July, August, and onwards. So with Calgary rolling into its summer, and we're also here in Alberta rolling into our stage 3 reopening plan, it is fair to say that we will likely be thinking a little less about our real estate as it's finally time for us to get out, enjoy yourselves, as real estate was one of those things that continued on while everything else shut down. So now it's time, I think, for people to trend a little bit more to focus on the other parts of our economy, the local restaurants, the vacations you deserve, and everything else. So as a result, if you're buying, you'll probably feel that there's a little less pressure out there when you're coming to market and you're looking for that next fit home for you. This is a good thing for you. You'll probably feel a little more at ease out there buying. If you're a seller and you're coming to market now, your realtor needs to be advising you on this information. We are past peak, and you need to know that so you will price properly and market even better. Again, if you need any recommendations, we have over 80 realtors here at Redline that would be happy to help you about your custom situation, property type, price point, and location specific. So that's about it. Thank you once again for tuning in to another episode of Redline TV, and you've just listened to the complete July market update. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Hit that bell so you don't miss it. And if you have any specific questions, please feel free to reach out on this channel. I answer every question, every comment that comes along. Have a fantastic July, and we'll see you again next month.